Happy snowy Tuesday, Washington. Welcome back to Post Sports Live. I'm your host, Jonathan Forsythe. Joining me in the studio is an energetic LaVar Arrington this morning.
Rested.
Redskins editor, Keith McMillan, and NFL editor, Keith McMillan. Keith, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
And Dan Steinberg, welcome back to the show. Dan, how was your week off?
I had food poisoning. It's not.
Oh, gosh, sorry about that.
But it wasn't that much fun. But I'm really glad to be here with all of you fine fellows today.
All right, braving the weather. Hopefully everybody's home watching.
I laugh at food poisoning.
Yeah,
ha ha ha.
Tougher than food poisoning.
Food poisoning.
It's just a distraction.
You should start
Really
eating
can't
meat.
let
You
the
probably
noise.
won't have as much food poisoning.
You sound a little insincere about something.
All right, lots to cover in today's show. I wanted to lead with the military bowl and the Terps going, but
Nice.
but my producers told me no, can't do that.
They will always
Got to
have
focus
a
on the
home,
Redskins.
as long as they're a
It's in
military
Annapolis,
bowl.
LaVar.
As long
you
as they're a
going?
military bowl.
Are you going? Anyway,
yes, I'm going.
We'll talk about that on another show. Lots to talk about today's shows. We're going to talk about the report that came out before the Chiefs game. We'll talk about Shanahan's news conference, talk about the state of the franchise right now and what's next, what's on the horizon, how long Shanahan lasts. Everybody seems to assume by this point it's only a matter of time when the axe falls and when Snyder fires him. And it's sort of a cat and mouse game with the press conferences going back and forth. We'll offer bold predictions for the Falcons game. Is anybody going to watch that game between 2, 3, and 10 teams? We'll see. And then finally, we'll wrap things up with a best and worst of 2013, something the DC Sports Blog is working on, some lists for the end of the year. Should have a little bit of fun with that. First things first, LaVar, I want to start with the ESPN report that came out prior to the game on Sunday, assuming that Mike Shanahan was the source behind that, as I think, unless you have other thoughts for who it may have been.
I don't think it matters who the source is. I just know that it's a source that has Mike Shanahan's best interests at mind, at heart.
Okay,
That's
what's
what
the motivation exactly?
If I had to take a stab at what I would assume to be the motivation here, it would be to try to salvage Mike Shanahan's his legacy and his reputation, because this head coaching position has a way of tainting and tarnishing reputations and legacies. He's not, for as much as people may want to assume, he's not a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. And so if you don't look at him as a shoo-in, if you're trying to do damage control for Mike Shanahan's legacy as it applies to what that may entail going forward, they will look at this time in Washington. They will look at those last years in Denver in terms of looking at, does he belong in those hollowed halls? So I think that whoever released it, whether it's him or someone close to him, this is basically saying, look, I'm going to put this out here so that whether there is a amicable separation between Mike and the Redskins or not, if it is respect when they release, when he's gone, fired, quit, whatever it may be, it says, here is the seed of doubt that was planted at, by the way, a very, very well timed.
That was my next question, the timing.
It's as masterfully
He can still
timed.
argue that anytime. But
It's
why
as
right before the Kansas City
masterfully
game?
timed as you could possibly make it, because people are really down on this team, and more specifically down on Robert Griffin III. So people are looking for answers as to why there has been such a going backwards, so to speak, for Robert Griffin III and this franchise. I don't want to be the scapegoat here. And so now you're looking at someone who has enough pull and enough influence that it can now be a real discussion had with these leakage things. I mean, is it crazy to think that the leak of Robert Griffin III not wanting his bad film to be viewed, there's just been this systematic plan of chipping away.
Were you surprised when the report came out, Keith, the timing of it?
Well, no, because honestly, I was surprised by the report itself, but this is consistent now with the Redskins. It's happened several times this season, and it becomes a circus atmosphere. right, and I think that may get the coach off the hook for having a bad season, or it was an attempt, and not a thinly veiled one at that, to try to get the coach off the hook for what's turning out to be a disaster of a season, and it's not going to get any better. Now, I don't know if we know for a fact that Mike Shanahan is the source of the story, but that's what everybody thinks. And so now we're at a situation where perception has become reality, and if it was a gambit to improve Shanahan's reputation, I think it actually harmed it.
Dan, is he just trying to force Snyder's hand at this point?
I mean, I can't come up with a better theory than that, really. And I think we're going to talk about this some more, but that effort, if that's the theory, that continued into his press conference on Sunday, where he refused to shoot this down. I mean, he had plenty of times to say, whoever the source of the story was, it's false. That is not the case. I was not planning on quitting. I had not cleaned out my office. He didn't say that on Sunday. He had another chance to say it on Monday. Finally, he sort of said, well, I don't have much stuff in my office to begin with, so it wouldn't have taken me very long to clean out. Which is not
take away. That doesn't shoot it down.
The point of the story, which was like, the point of the story is someone out there believes or told ESPN.com that Mike Shanahan was ready to leave this team at the end of last season. If that's not the case, you would do everything in your power to say, that is not the case. My players need to know I was not going to walk out on them, and he didn't do it.
Well, keep in mind, and you have to read between the lines sometimes, because he is very evasive in terms of answering questions, and he doesn't answer questions definitively. Read between the lines that you did have a meeting with Daniel Snyder, and he can say whatever he wants to say in terms of we have 3 wins, so there's going to be a lot of noise. Well, the noise is warranted based upon what's coming out. That's the bottom line.
Look, and Atlanta has 3 wins. Houston is having a bad season. There are a lot of teams across the league.
And Buffalo's what, like 4 wins?
Right.
There's no drama there.
Right, and there are teams that have had drama. Miami, Tampa Bay, and they wrap up their drama in a couple of weeks. The cycle goes through. They play through the new cycle.
Think about that.
And those teams are winning now.
Right. I'm going to ask you about the percent, like the drama and who deserves what blame for where we are right now in a segment going ahead. But first, I want to get to RG3 minutes. Let's transition to that. And the question to you, LaVar, is will we see RG3 on the field again after Shanahan hinted at his news conference yesterday that perhaps he'll think about benching him for the Atlanta game?
I would say, in all honesty, my real thought process here is there is a forcing of the hand taking place. Mm-hmm. There is a chess match taking place behind closed doors, and if Mike Shanahan remains the head coach of this team, we will not see Robert Griffin III the rest of this year. And that's a big take that. And I'm saying take that because I know this is a family show. So use that context in terms of what it is. Okay. So
there's kids at home on a school
I
day
believe
today
that Mike Shanahan
is
if the great take that from Dan Snyder to Mike Shanahan is you're going to finish this season out. As a matter of fact, you're going to finish this contract out. You're not going to not be a part of this team because we fired you. You're going to not be a part of this team because you quit. So if there's a battle of odds going on right now, Robert Griffin III will not play another down this season if Mike Shanahan is the head coach of this team.
Keith, do you agree with that? If Shanahan remains in his current position, you're not going to see RG3 again?
Well, he wasn't. He didn't say I'm definitely going to do it. Right? He threw it out there, and it made it very obvious that it was a threat and not a I'm doing this because of I'm really concerned about Robert's health, which would be a change.
A 360.
A
180.
A 180, right, from what he's been saying up until now. If the question is will we see him again, then I think the answer is yes, we will see him again, because I don't know if Mike Shanahan is going to make it through these 3 games. I think LaVar's right, and I think everybody here would probably say the same thing, that right now it's a stalemate or a standoff, and it's over. Are you going to be fired, or are you going to quit? And he's going to look petty, I think, if he does bench RG3 for the final 3 games.
Dan, what's preventing Snyder from just firing him right now?
$7 million that he doesn't want to pay him. I think that he doesn't want to give him the satisfaction. Like LaVar said, it's 2 egos, and neither one wants to kind of give in. But I agree with Keith. I think that Shanahan talked about it at great length yesterday, but he never said, I'm going to do it. And I think that when he thinks about it, I think this tarnishes his legacy more than anything else. If he benches, it would obviously be such like a transparently petty move that I don't think he would go through.
But he gave information that he stated, and he's absolutely correct. RG3 is getting his tail kicked, even against teams that can't even get to the quarterback.
Okay, so what do you say to Kirk Cousins? Excuse me, sir, can you please go in there and get your tail
kicked? Yes. And the interesting dynamic here, or what to me is considered to be an oxymoron of sorts, is you're saying you want to protect him from getting hurt, So are you saying that the fact of the matter is when we were in this game with Seattle in the first round of the playoffs is that playoff game meant more? So what is it about? Is it about his legacy, winning this game and trying to get further into the playoffs as a head coach? Or is it the benefit of this organization going forward, and that is protecting our franchise player? Because if you're using that as an argument now, then why the hell did you not use that as an argument when you were in the Seattle game? Because you darn sure put him back out there and he blew his knee out in that game for the sake of what? Trying to win that first round game? Because if that's what it was, then how does that benefit this organization going forward? And if that was your clarity, if that right there was your epiphany, then you say it. You say that based upon that game when I trusted myself and trusted him to put him back in that game, knowing that he was visibly shaken and he was visibly hurt, I still made the decision to put him back in the game. We're talking about now you're a year removed from that, and you're going to hold him out for the rest of a season, and you have 3 wins? Are we dumb? Are we dumb, people?
To take that a little bit further, I mean, everything you say is valid.
Extra time on the clock. Take it.
But the Eagles game this year at the start of the season, when he's 8 months out or whatever it is from ACL surgery. I mean, clearly he wasn't right yet for those first 3 weeks of the season, and yet they were trotting him out there for games that meant far less than the Seattle game. Obviously, it wasn't about his health at that point, so it is kind of
You make
strange.
that decision before now. Do not use your arguments and your discussions now to justify putting him on the bench for the sake of this organization moving forward. That's just, it's dumb.
All right, let's move on to the next question, and this is using the three people sort of in the mix here. Obviously, Dan Snyder at the top, Mike Shanahan, and Robert Griffin III. And I should say Robert Griffin III's camp. Let's include his family, sort of his close associates.
At least his father is man enough to be the source.
Let me ask the question, Dan. I want to start with you. Dan, I want to start with you. If you're assigning blame out of a pie chart, let's do 100% blame to go through these 3 parts of the camp for the current state of the Redskins and the drama and the soap opera that is at Ashburn right now. How much of the percentages go to each wedge? Snyder, Shanahan, RG3.
First of all, golly, what a life this is that we're doing percentage blame. I mean, we're not even
Pie
talking
charts
about
on Post Sports Live.
You know, I'm going to, this kind of goes against my instinct a little bit, but I'm going to give the majority of the blame to Shanahan because he is the guy that runs this organization, and they're a horrible team right now, and that's why all this drama is happening. I don't know how you could blame anyone more than the coach and de facto general manager anyhow. So I'll give him like 60%. I'm going to give Dan Snyder like 30% for the same reason. He has to own this is his organization, and we've seen situations like this over and over for the past 15 years. I think Robert Griffin III and his family have done countless things that would better have been avoided over the past few years. But I'm going to give them a little bit of a pass because he is 23 years old, and I think that he is taking his cues from adults who are acting like children. And so I think he's not faultless, but I'm going to keep it at like 10% for him. All
right, so 60 for Shanny, 30 for Snyder. What do you have, Keith?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of playing the blame game either and only giving it to 3 people because there are a lot of people who have their hand in this. But if I had to do it, 45, 45, 10, that would be Snyder running the organization, Shanahan, and 10 for Robert Griffin III. I think the players, ideally, the players play, and they should be shielded from this the circus atmosphere. I understand, the star quarterback has to have a public persona and handle that in maybe different ways than Robert Griffin III has handled it. But the state of the franchise is certainly, it starts at the top and it runs through Mike Shanahan. And there's reasons why they are where they are. We could talk about the salary cap penalty and not having enough talent, but all those things came from decisions that were made by the franchise.
Can I chip in one more thing before LaVar speaks? I think, look at the first 2 years of Shanahan and Snyder here, when Griffin was not in the picture. We had the Hainsworth debacle, we had the McNabb thing, we had the contract extension, the benching, and the cardiovascular. I mean, it's not like this place was free of drama.
Grossman.
Right.
Yeah, this place was not free of drama, so it's hard to put the drama on RG3, I think.
But that drama also existed prior to Shanahan when you were Zorn. So just to point that out, go ahead, LaVar. Your take. I think I know where you're going with this.
I don't think you do.
All right.
I'm giving 90% to Mike Shanahan.
Wow. That does surprise me.
I'm giving 7.5 to Mike Shanahan.
Wait, what?
Wait,
To-
7.5.
You said
Right.
You said
To
90
Daniel
to
Snyder?
Shanahan.
Or excuse me, to
Snyder.
Snyder.
Okay.
7.5.
All right. 97.5. All right.
And the rest goes to the players. Like, I'm not even.
Singling out, aren't you?
No, it goes to the players
Okay.
in general. And the reason why I give that small percentage to the players is based solely upon that last game. I won't even take and consider the rest of the season. I looked at that last game and I saw a group of guys that, if anything, you play that game for one another. You play that game for one another. When all else fails, we may lose this game, but at least go out of that game knowing that we gave our heart and our soul to try to win this game. I saw it in very few, is what I'll say.
Explain to me the 90% though.
The
Why so high
90%
on
Shanahan is that the reason why it's high for him as it is low for Dan Snyder is it is established what Dan Snyder is. It's established how Dan Snyder handles things, and to think that that's going to change is ridiculous. So when you accepted that contract, the reason why you are the highest paid coach for one of the failing organizations in the National Football League is because you knew that your compensation needed to be so high for you to accept this job to come in and try to fix this mess. You've walked into the filth, and you've not only not fixed the filth that you said was fixed last week, but it is continuing to get filthier. I can look at some of these coaches around here. I said that Joe Gibbs was coward-like for leaving the way that he did. You know what? Maybe it was wrong to stay cowardly-like. Maybe it was, you're a smart man, even though I don't fool with you, but you were a smart man for getting out of the way of what it is that you saw you can't fix it. So when that man accepted $7 million a year, $7 million a year to be a part of this, you said to yourself, you are paying me a large, absorbent amount, an ungodly amount of money to come in here and take whatever it is that comes my way with whatever it is that happens with this team. So take it and own it, and own that 90% because you took the job. Nobody told you to come off of Mexico and the beach where you were getting your tans and feeling real good about yourself to come here and coach this team and be smug. And do you notice how he doesn't answer the questions of beat reporters? He brushes beat reporters off. He answers national reporters, which further solidifies why you could ultimately say that coming from a large, credible source, I know Dan Graziano. He did come on our show before he started working with ESPN. This man has FaceTime with Dan Snyder weekly, appointment FaceTime with this coach. So to me, you're answering national media. Why? Because this is a bigger deal than you sitting here trying to stay face and save your reputation within this market. He could care less about this market. You got paid to come here. You own it. 91%.
Nobody. Keith was the closest to putting Snyder at you put Snyder at equal parts. But we got to move on because I'm getting buzzed in my ear.
Well, this is crazy that he comes out of this looking better.
See,
better than he's looked.
I'm surprised by the three. I have about 10 follow-up questions that I don't have time to ask. But that's the biggest thing is how can you let Snyder off so lightly through all this? But we will answer that on another show, maybe next week. All right. Where do they go from here, Dan? Two questions. Let's make it quick. What should Snyder do? What will he do?
He should have fired Mike Shanahan yesterday. And he should have either done that or somehow come out and given him some kind of demonstration that this was not dead man walking for the next 3 weeks, because otherwise the next 3 weeks are a total farce. I mean, as much as it has been, like, how are you going to ask him questions after the Atlanta game? Where are you going to go from here? You're not going to ask him what happened in the Atlanta game. The games are totally irrelevant, and it's just all going to be about these stories that are going to keep leaking out. That's what he should have done. What will he do? At this point, I guess my best guess is that the day of the final game, or possibly the day after that, he'll fire him. But it should have been gotten over with by now.
Keith, what will he do? What should he do?
Well, he's stuck. He's got to can him, I think. And it escalated quickly. It got bad fast. it was a bad season. It was 3-9, and then in the past 48 hours, it's gotten to the point where you can't. I don't see how the coach can walk into the locker room and keep the players focused on football when all this is happening. And when the people in the organization are not answering the questions and not making the definitive moves that need to be made, I don't think people know inside the organization, they know what's going on or what's going to happen next. I think those people are just as much in the dark as the rest of us are, and that's not any way to focus on football.
Yeah, and, I mean, Griffin was like borderline despondent looking at his post-game press conference, saying it's just like, this is not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I didn't sign up for this.
I mean, he was just like...
He's figuring out the reality that every last high-profile player that comes here has to figure out. I had that same
Spoken from a high-profile player.
I had that same exact moment, like, this isn't what this is supposed to be like. I won since I was 8 years old playing the game. Our feeder system to our high school team, we had a National League championship crowned team in high school. There was always a standard. When I got here, I had that very moment. It's funny, I see it on so many. I saw it on Arakpo's face. I've seen it on Kerrigan's face. I saw it on London's face yesterday. Even, I mean, at this point, whether that holds a lot of weight or not, I don't know. You see it on guys' faces that the reality sets in, like, where am I? It's like when you come from winning and you get here, it's like you've now been thrust into the what is it, the Twilight Zone. Like they should play the music. The music should be playing at the front door every single time you walk into Redskins Park.
And, as a football player too, you're the last one to accept reality because you're coached.
You're a competitor,
to think that you can win, and I think they're getting to this point with the fact that the last 3 games don't matter. I think are a little.
That's why I gave $2 million to this organization to leave. Think about that. $2 million.
Will Shanahan give $7 million to leave?
The interesting thing about this scenario is he cannot win this battle. He can't win this war. So he would be best to resign right now. Lay your king down on the board and walk away with what little bit you have left to walk away from.
Resign, isn't he?
And I heard someone, I think on your station, talking about this yesterday. I don't remember, but when Jim Zorn was at the end of his tenure here, he didn't have any options because he was seen by everyone as a joke. He had no standing. Mike Shanahan, as badly as things have gone here, he's still a 2-time Super Bowl winning coach with allies all over the media.
Yes.
And he can leak, whether he has leaked in the past or not, he can leak this guy to death. And I'm sure there's plenty of other stuff out there that's going to make the organization look bad and the owner look bad and the GM look bad and the quarterback look bad.
And that's why they have to continue to meet with Mike Shanahan. You can't just I know you guys were saying fire him,
you got to write
now.
off the $7 million. Move on. He's got to.
Let me tell you something. You cannot.
He's got to.
You cannot jump that quickly to firing Mike Shanahan for those very things that you just stated. I stated it earlier in the show. You have to try to end this in a way where everybody comes out and stays face. It's an amicable, separation. That you have to.
Aren't we beyond that?
He will never be a coach ever again after not in the NFL after this season.
Regardless of how.
Let's keep that in mind.
I think LaVar is right about that, and I think that it's not impossible. You saw Shanahan, I think twice yesterday, said I still have a good relationship with Dan. I think that obviously there's a lot of
he's giving him the opportunity.
I think
giving him
true.
the opportunity.
I think that
but
is
he
true.
did throw out little subtleties to say, "Don't mess with me. I'm his coach. I'm not his best friend. I'm his coach. We don't have to be best friends." That's a shot. Shot fired.
He's firing a lot of shots.
Wow.
It's easy for us to say fire him when it's not our $7 million that's being spent. I think ultimately they'll try to meet somewhere in the middle.
I think whether you fire him or you keep him, you mentioned something earlier about keeping these players focused on football. I think last Sunday's game showed you that there is not an ounce of focus on football right now as it applies to the players or the coaches. It's about survival mode, and that's generally what happens in December with Washington Redskins teams. It's survival. Don't get hurt.
Yeah. That's what I was going to
That's
say.
an
Not to
argument
let
to bench
your value
RG3.
go
No,
down.
but I mean, obviously, like players have to show on film that they're who they are and whatever. But if you're hearing the coach say, "Hey, I don't want to play our best player right now because I don't want him to get hurt," like what incentive is it for you to throw your body
what
into?
message is that to you?
Yeah.
If you're a player and I'm saying,
That's what I'm saying,
we're not
yeah.
going to play you, sir. We're going to rest you because you're the future of this
We'll make
franchise.
sure you don't get hurt.
I'm
All the rest
looking,
of you
I'm
guys
looking
will
around
have
like, what?
Yeah.
Who?
It's right. It's
special
So
treatment.
I'm expendable
He's
to
used
you?
to the
Right.
special treatment.
Yeah, no.
right. This is bad for everybody, and the
This is
people
worse than a
who
limo
are
ride for his.
Yeah, or parking in the
We're not going
stadium.
to play Robert. We're going to make sure he can
Go
get
ahead,
a full
Keith,
off
finish.
season.
the
Please.
people who are going to be with this organization next year need to start thinking with a little bit more long-term focus in mind, because you can't afford. There's not that many NFL games in your career.
Right.
You can't afford to just throw 3 of them down the drain, whether it's guys who need to play to get better or whatever the case
That
may
was
be.
evident in that game last week.
Speaking of the rest of the string, let's go to bold predictions, guys. And there is a game this Sunday. They're playing at Atlanta. We mentioned it earlier. Last week, quick review. LaVar, you nailed. You're on a heater right now on your bold
fire.
predictions. You predicted plus 30 for the Chiefs and less than 20 for the Skins. You nailed it. Wise was Morris plus 30 carries. That was way off. He had 12. And I had Alex Smith with more rushing yards than RG3, and that was way off.
I would
Too.
love to publish a book of all of Wise's predictions that he's ever made in any
All right.
context.
So bold predictions for a game that I don't know how many people will watch this Sunday, maybe watching the sidelines, for the game at Atlanta, Dan.
Here you go. I think that Mike Shanahan explicitly called out his offensive linemen by saying they couldn't pass protect well enough for him to even play the quarterback. And I was thinking maybe that fires them up to pass protect even better, but then I changed my mind and said no. So I think that whoever the quarterback is for the Washington Redskins will get sacked at least 4 times and maybe far more than that against the Falcons.
4 sacks. Keith, give me a bold prediction.
My bold prediction is the Redskins players rally a little bit at the beginning, get out to maybe a double-digit lead, and then let it all slip away. I think there's a reason for them as players to come out and play with a little bit of pride. They're going against another team that has a bad record, but I don't think Atlanta is even without Julio Jones, who they've been without for most of the season, and their defense has been struggling. I don't think they're that bad of a team, and I think over the course of 60 minutes, Atlanta wins it going away.
Yeah, they hung with New Orleans and almost beat Green Bay on the road last week. Give me something, LaVar. Give me a bold prediction. You're on a heater.
Here's my bold prediction, even though it contradicts what I said earlier about if Mike Shanahan is still a coach, you'll never see RG3. I think that Mike Shanahan is smart enough to listen to what the outcry and what the public opinion will be, and understand that you're not in a market like Denver right now. And he will indeed play Robert Griffin III this weekend. I think not only will he play, but I think the Redskins will actually win this game in Atlanta.
Wow, I was not
That's my
expecting that from you.
RG3 plays plus Redskins win.
Bad teams are so unpredictable. And so when you have an unpredictable team, sometimes things happen, and I think they'll win this game.
I'm similar to that, but I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins starts, wins the game for the Redskins, and then you've got a whole lot more stuff to talk about, a quarterback controversy on your hands because he stops the losing streak next week, even though as bizarre and crazy as that would be. I got Cousins leading the team to a victory if he plays. If he doesn't, the bold prediction shouldn't count against me. All right. Let's.
And the rules.
Yeah, we can make the rules, right? All right, Dan, do you want to explain quickly what the DC Sports Blog is doing at the end of the year list?
Yeah, we've done in the past. I've done the best 10 or 11 moments from a sports year for DC. I started doing this probably 5 or 6 years ago. I think I took a couple years off. I know I took last year off when there were so many good moments, unfortunately. And then we thought we would revive it this year. We were going to do the best moments of 2013 in DC sports and the worst moments. And so we were kind of talking about this among ourselves and thought it would be a nice little debate here. I get to start, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm starting on the
start
best
off
side.
with the best.
I mean, and it's slim pickings. I think all you guys who were thinking about it, obviously no one won anything in the playoffs in 2013. Even the NCAA tournament was kind of a disaster. But to me, I look at optimism and joy as the best moment. And I look at the Nationals opening day when they were still coming off the high of the great season the year before. Bryce Harper was hitting home runs. Strasburg was dominating like he's never dominated. Everything that we thought was going to happen, and that day happened. It was a great day. Fans were thrilled. And I think that you left that day thinking, man, things are definitely going in the right direction for at least this team, and this team's going to be in the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs. So, like, to me, for one single moment that encapsulated like joy and happiness, it's opening day of the baseball season.
It was a storybook game, too,
And,
the way
it should not be the first day of the season. That should not be your best moment. But I think it was.
Keith, what's your best sports moment of the year?
It was really slim pickings, as Dan said. I think the best moment would be the run that the Caps had at the end of the season and to make the playoffs. But we went through this for about 10 minutes over on the sports desk, and there wasn't any one game that stood out where somebody threw a no-hitter or guy scored 50 points or it was a great performance in the NCAA tournament or so. And there wasn't a team of the great moments. They would either be something so minor that it was hard to call it the best moment of the year, right? Or something that I went back to maybe that Redskins Dallas game, but that was December 30th of last year. So I was trying
that was just before.
I was hoping maybe they played it on January 2nd or something like that. But
Right.
they're just that's the kind of year it's been. The expectations were high, the potential was there, and almost none of it delivered.
LaVar, give me your best.
I went with the Caps as well, and it's kind of current. I said them overtaking the number one spot in the Metro League. I think a lot of people said that they would be cellar dwellers, that they wouldn't be able to compete on a high enough level to maintain a pace within the Metro League, so the division. And at one point, they were number one in the division.
So you're talking about the Capitals this season?
Yeah, I'm talking about the
right
Caps
now.
this season.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Caps this season.
They're still in second.
Where
Right,
are you
and
at?
they're still
my-
hanging in there.
Yeah, my top would be, I'll go college hoops. I think Otto Porter and Georgetown beating Syracuse in the last game as Big East rivals at the Carrier Dome when Porter went off for the Hoyas. And secondary would be Maryland Duke. Maryland beating Duke at Comcast Center the last time they'd play, as it would turn out, as ACC rivals in College Park. All right, let's move on to the worst moments, Dan.
I don't know
Lead
if this
us
is a
off.
debate. I hope that I'm not sure if we all have the same thing for this one, but to me, it's a no-brainer that it's RG3 crumpled in a heap on the FedEx Field grass as that game ended. Obviously, it was, the very first week of 2013, and a lot of other bad things happened in 2013. But I don't think there's like a worse image than that quarterback in a heap on the ground. So that's
It's
my
hard to
worst.
top.
I might trump you.
Hard to top. Oh,
I
Lamar's
might
got
chump
one.
you.
Keith, what do you got?
I just went in the
Just
interest.
go something
In the
different.
interest of not repeating,
Yeah.
I thought the moment that Daniel Snyder said he would never change the team's name, I thought turned that debate, which probably should have been a educational, nuanced discussion over people with good positions, it turned it into sort of a snowball fight, and it just stretched on the entire offseason. And I don't know if that itself contributed solely to the circus atmosphere, but it's sort of emblematic of the way this season was. So much potential on the field, and we really ended up only talking about things that happened off the field.
In all caps, nonetheless, right?
Yeah,
That was the
that's
The funniest thing about this is the worst is a straight sweep for the Redskins, and I think that kind of tells the story of
What's yours?
of our team. It's this game last Sunday.
That's
the
a
Chiefs
contender.
game.
I
That's
think
it.
that
Yeah.
total.
Yeah, sure.
I think that totally trumps Robert Griffin III going down. Robert can recover from that knee injury as much as that represented at that moment in time. But I looked at a team give up during the course of a game, and more importantly and more disturbing than that, I watched a fan base give up.
Yeah.
And it was totally illustrated in the panaways of FedEx Field that you only had a handful of Kansas City Chief fans behind. Now keep in mind, we're in FedEx Field. You have an entire gathering of Chiefs fans behind their bench, and the rest of the stadium is empty, and it was pretty much empty in the third quarter of that game.
And the attendance was the lowest in the history of FedEx,
But
right?
it shows you that's an illustration, the Chiefs fans, of what you're willing to put up with if your team is worth
look
watching.
look where they were last
They
year.
give you
exactly the same in Baltimore and that crowd.
right. They give you something to be attached to. When you get to a point where you're like, I've been with these guys forever, and I'm just done with them today. I'm not sitting through this.
I'll be
sad.
the lone dissenting voice.
Total resignation.
I'll be the lone dissenting voice on worst moment. I'm not going to go Redskins just to be different. I think that it's hard to argue with the RG3 injury.
But you're the host. It's a clean sweep with us.
I'm the host. I got the
host,
Hoyas going out to Dunk City in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I mean, this was a team led by the Big East Player of the Year that a lot of people had in their Final Four, and losing again early in the tournament was a big. Even though Dunk City was entertaining the way they did it,
and they knocked a lot of people out.
That was a low. I mean, that was bad.
I'll tell you something else.
Also, 4-28 for the Wizards. That start, even though that started in 2012, that went into 2013.
I think amazing. We haven't mentioned the Nats at all. They were basically the
supposed to win the series.
runaway World Series favorites. They didn't even make the playoffs, and we haven't even mentioned them here.
Well,
a lot of bad.
We are dominated by Redskins, just like this show today. Well, for Dan Steinberg, Keith McMillan, LaVar Arrington, I'm your host, Jonathan Forsythe. Remember, you can hit us on Twitter. Let us know your favorite top moments from 2013 and worst moments from 2013. Hit us at Post Sports Live or at DC Sports Blog. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Tuesday on Post Sports Live.